I want to give a special shout out to all my patrons first. Thank you so much to my Bibliospren, Bibliohowlers, and my Bibliomancers. It means a lot to me that you give me your extra support for my passion and hobby. Hi everyone, Petrik here. Today's video will be a wrap-up video. So this is another wrap-up, and of course this is somehow another sad wrap-up because I managed to read 4 books, that's 4 novels, plus 18 volumes of manga. So it's good on the manga part, but on the novel side, I wasn't able to read a lot of books, and again, I failed to find another 5 stars read. Yeah, it's becoming a trend here. I'm not gonna lie, and it's bumming me out. I'm really sad about it. It's never happened before, but it's really a trend this year, and I'm not happy. Hopefully, the second half of this year, hopefully I will be able to find more 5 stars books. And right now, as I'm reading Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, it seems like it's about to happen. I have a good feeling. But anyway, this month I'll be talking about all the books that I finished last month. 4 books. Let's start from the novels first. The first one, as I mentioned in my June wrap-up video, in my May wrap-up video, I finished A Gentleman in Moscow in the first few days of the month of June. So now, I will talk about that a bit more because I have finally finished watching the television show adaptation as well. And now, I will maintain my statement that I actually like the story that is portrayed in A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor, Towles. But I wasn't a fan of the execution in the book. I really liked the prose. I highlighted so many passages. I think there were many beautiful passages in A Gentleman in Moscow, but the actual experience of reading the book, somehow I wasn't able to feel connected with the characters and their story at all in the books. It's a different story in the TV show. Somehow in the television show, right from the first episodes, and it keeps on going until the end of the series, it managed to grab me. I felt much more invested in the main character's journey and also his relationship with the characters of the hotel. So generally speaking, in terms of atmosphere, story, and also the progression of the plotline, it is so much better in the television show for me. I love the music as well. I think it really accompanied the storyline really nicely. And yeah, so when people ask me whether I would recommend A Gentleman in Moscow, the book, or the television show, I will recommend the television show instead. But this does not mean that I will discourage anyone from reading A Gentleman in Moscow because, well, it is a very popular and very highly praised book, and well, I am very sure that I'm on the unpopular side when it comes to my opinion on the book for A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor, Towles. If you have read what is it? The Lincoln Highway? Yeah, do let me know whether you like A Gentleman in Moscow more or The Lincoln Highway. I think that's really the title, but correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, that was the first book that I finished in the month of June, and it was a big disappointment, unfortunately. But after that, I managed to read this chunky book, and it is Curse of the Mistwraith by Janny Wurts. Not gonna lie, this one, well, I have been looking forward to reading A Curse of the Mistwraith, the first book in the Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wurts, for a few years now. If you have been watching my channel, you might have seen that I spotlighted Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wurts in my priority series that I want to start and finish within a single year. Plenty of times. I think it is 3 times now, including this year. And now I finally started reading The Curse of the Mistwraith. Well, I have kind of finished it, but at the same time, I must say, I think to give this one a proper review, I need to do a second read of The Curse of the Mistwraith, because as much as I enjoyed reading the ambition scope of this book, because this is such a setup for the rest 10 books of Wars of Light and Shadow. And I think it is a good setup, especially the beginning and also the ending portion of The Curse of the Mistwraith. It is beautifully written, and speaking of writing, this is probably the one thing that everyone must know or already know when it comes to Wars of Light and Shadow. This is a different form of beast compared to Rift War Empire Trilogy that Janny wrote together with Raymond Ifais. It is completely different. This is so much more difficult. It will require your attention fully. Yeah, that's the thing. This is one thing that you have to remember. In my opinion, this is even, well, Harder is probably not the correct word, but it will require more concentration than reading Malazan, Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. I find reading Malazan much more easier compared to reading Curse of the Mistwraith. It took me about 18 days to actually finish reading Curse of the Mistwraith, one chapter per day. That's the way I was able to tackle this one. If not, I don't think I would be able to finish it, because it just demanded a lot of my attention, probably too much right now, because I am in such a busy period of my life, and because of that, reading this book was not, well, it was not a proper time in my opinion. And because of that, well, I want to try reading the second book before I give a really proper review of Curse of the Mistwraith. But for now, I will say for the first book of a series, this will not be easy to read for many fantasy readers. Yeah, this is not for those who are new to the genre, and even if you are advanced to the genre, I think you will still find some difficulty in reading Curse of the Mistwraith. The language, the intentionally written language, will definitely challenge you on that front. But I cannot deny that the world building, it is incredibly ambitious. It set up a lot of things to be, well, I assume, to be explored and solved in the remaining 10 books in the series. After all, this is only the first out of 11 books of Words of Light and Shadow series. I love the dynamic between the two main characters, Ariton and also Lysayer, and there were some definitely beautiful moments, such as, I don't think it is a spoiler to say, Ariton's first encounter with a unicorn in this book. It was so beautifully written. I really loved that scene. And also there were other scenes, such as this moment in the front cover of the UK cover art. I think this one is gorgeous and also epic. I love reading that scene. And also, well, I cannot dive into this one too much because it will be spoiler, but I think I'm going to give this one, for now, a 3.5 out of 5 stars rating. That's my measurement anyway for my first time reading of Curse of the Mistwraith. But on the plus side, I heard this is by far the weakest book in the entire Words of Light and Shadow. So it bodes well for me that the first book is a 3.5 out of 5 stars rating. Hopefully, the second book, or the second omnibus, Ships of Merior, I think that's the title. It combined the second and the third book of the series, Ships of Merior and also Warhosts of Vestmark, into one omnibus edition in the US hardcover. Hopefully that one will be a bigger hit with me. But for those of you who want to try a bit more challenging fantasy series and also a grand and completed epic fantasy series, try reading Words of Light and Shadow. Start from Curse of the Mistwraith. You might get what you want here. So after I finished reading Curse of the Mistwraith, which was overall good, even though it took me a long time to read. 18 days is really long for me to be reading a book. It's really rare for me to require 18 days to finish a single book. I mean, for comparison to Green Angel Tower by Ted Williams, that's about 520,000 words long, so more than twice the word count for Curse of the Mistwraith. That one took me 2 weeks. So Curse of the Mistwraith actually took me longer to read because of, well, I'm busy and also the challenges of the writing. And because of that, I decided to read a shorter book, and it is one of my most anticipated debut of this year, and it is Kavithri by Aman J. Bedi. This is a South Asian inspired debut fantasy novel. It is marketed as a grim dark fantasy, and also, as I always say in my TBR video and also during my cover reveal, this is, well, the author has mentioned that so many inspirations were put into this book. So many of my favorites, such as Malazan, Book of the Fallen, and then also the Stormlight Archive, and Evangelion, Berserk by Kentaro Miura, A Song of Ice and Fire, and many other titles. But unfortunately, many of those inspirations did not land on me. I did not feel like this book was inspired by many of them. I did find the Berserk inspirations by Kentaro Miura, and also somehow Hajime no Ippo. There is a boxing match. I hope that's not a spoiler. There's a boxing match in Kavithri, and that point was the turning point of the book for me. It went from good to great after we reached the boxing match in Kavithri. And yeah, this is, as I said, a South Asian inspired fantasy debut. But for comparison, I think the best comparison that I can think of when it comes to this debut is the Poppy War trilogy by R.F. Kuang. Especially their first book. So imagine this. Imagine the Poppy War with an Indian-inspired world building with a main character, with a main heroine that is more dedicated toward reining her anger. It is not like Rin. Rin from the Poppy War is just, well, she's unhinged. She unleashed her anger non-stop and all the time. Kavithri, or Kavi in this book, is not that. She's doing her best to actually control her anger, and she's so much more empathical, in my opinion. It's so much more easier to care about Kavi compared to Rin. I consider Rin as well written because the author fully intended Rin to be hugely dislikable, and I think well, R.F. Kuang achieved that. Well, Kavi is almost the total opposite of Rin from the Poppy War despite the similar premise. But if you like reading the storyline in the Poppy War, I think there are plenty of things that you will really like from reading Kavithri. The book worked well as a standalone novel, even though it is part of a series. But I think if you want to approach this, thinking of this as a standalone novel, and then, well, decide whether you want to continue reading the series or not, you definitely can do that. One thing that I felt a bit disappointed, I guess, is that I did not feel this to be a grim dark fantasy at all. I approached this one thinking that this would be a grim dark fantasy, but well, this is epic fantasy. It did not feel like epic grim dark fantasy to me anyway. But overall, this is still a great debut novel. I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars rating. So it is a great novel, a great debut story, and I will be reading the sequel as soon as possible. I think there is a title available already for the sequel on Goodreads. I'm not sure whether this is correct or not. The City of Jackals. I'm not sure whether this is the correct title or not, or this is tentative title. But yeah, I will be reading that one for sure because I really enjoyed reading Kavithri by Aman J. Bedi. It is not my personal favorite debut of the year, but it is still a great debut. And finally, the last novel that I finished last month, it was another grim dark fantasy novel, or supposedly a grim dark fantasy novel, and it is The Price of Power by Michel. Now this book, this debut novel, it has gained some very diehard loyal fans, and I'm happy to see that. I think this is a good grim dark fantasy debut. Well, not as grim dark as I hope. Again, I don't know, lately I've been feeling like I want my fantasy books to be so much more intense and danger. Like I want the characters to be so much more in danger, and I can feel that. I'm not getting that from the fantasy books that I read lately. Well, thankfully, I did get that from some of the characters in The Price of Power, because there are 4 main characters in The Price of Power, 4 main POV characters, and they are distinct from one another. And my personal favorite is the grandma and her grandchildren. I think Michel did such an amazing job with her POV chapter. It was incredible. It was really like looking forward to seeing a tragedy is about to unfold. We know this right from the first chapter, and seeing everything unfold, seeing the story progression, seeing the character development between the grandma, I'm trying to avoid the name, between the grandma and Akiris, Akiris, I think that's how to pronounce the grandson name. I really liked it. I think it was really good. And this grandma story was the only POV character that utilized a first-person POV narration. The other 3 main POV characters, they utilize a third-person past tense narration, just like usual. And out of the 3 of them, I like Prince Barodane quite enough. Not as much as I hope, because on concept, on the book, at least from the first few chapters, I really thought that Prince Barodane's story is the one that will hook me the most. But as I said, it did not end up being that way. The grandma and Akiris end up being my favorite POV story to read. I think Prince Barodane and also Garlena's story was a bit too long and also meandering. In my opinion, this is a very character-driven story. So, well, your miles will vary compared to mine. You might end up enjoying Prince Barodane's story so much more. But I like Ishoa Ironlight's story much more compared to Prince Barodane. I think out of all the 4 POV characters, Ishoa received the most spotlight for many good reasons. Ishoa's relationship with her animal companion, a tiger, it was really, well, I love animal companions in my fantasy books, so that's always a plus for me. But on top of that, I think seeing how much she developed from the first chapter and then compare it to the last of her chapter, you can see just how staggering her development was. And yeah, seeing her navigate the politics and the trials that she faced, it was easily one of the best aspects of The Price of Power for me. Unfortunately, one of the remaining characters, Towles, yeah, well, this is where the book kind of failed for me, because I did not click with Towles' storyline at all. It really felt, just like the prologue, it really felt like Towles' story belonged in another book compared to the other three POV characters, because the other three POV characters, their story gradually converged really nicely, but Towles, in my opinion, did not converge strongly enough. But that's really only my biggest gripe with The Price of Power. Overall, I can definitely see why people compared The Price of Power to the first Law trilogy, especially the Blade itself. Not too many events, not too many crucial events actually happen in the entire novel, unless we're talking about Ishoa. But for the remaining characters, in my opinion, not too many substantial events happen. And I think this book overall worked as a setup for the rest of the series to shine. I think in total, there will be 4 or 5 books, so this is just the beginnings, and I expect the rest of the series to be so much better compared to The Price of Power. But if you love character-driven grimdark fantasy, please give The Price of Power a try. You might end up enjoying this more than I did. I still liked it, but I hoped to love it more, and hopefully I can get that in the second book and beyond, which I will definitely try to read. And yeah, those are the 4 novels that I managed to finish in the month of June. And as you can probably tell, I did not, again, manage to find another 5-star books. So yeah, I still haven't found a 5-star fantasy book this year. I know, that is insane. It is so insane. But thankfully, on the manga side, last month, I decided to read one manga series. It is called Dandadan, and it is incredible. This manga is amazing. It became one of my favorite ongoing manga right now. Comedy, bizarre, well, insanity, and also intensity and emotions, all of them can be found in Dandadan. In my July TBR video, I mentioned that I want to read the remaining books in the Dandadan series. But apparently, I managed to finish all of them before the end of the month of June. So yeah, I'm now caught up with all the chapters in Dandadan. And as I said, the premise is this. A boy is obsessed with aliens, and then there is a girl who is obsessed with spirits. The girl doesn't believe in the existence of aliens, and the boy doesn't believe in the existence of spirits. So they are, the premise is that they are trying to convince one another of the existence of aliens and spirits. And as predicted, they end up meeting, well, what they don't believe exists. The boy end up meeting a spirit, and the girl end up meeting an alien. I love this manga series and the illustration. It's been a while since I managed to find a manga series this beautifully illustrated. It is so good. If you haven't read it, well, there is a manga adaptation coming really soon. I strongly recommend you to pick it up. It is awesome, awesome. So for my favorite book of the month, not counting manga, it will have to be Kavithri by Aman Bedi. I think it is a great debut novel, and it is also the only book, I guess, that received a 4 out of 5 stars rating from me in the month of June. Again, not counting manga, because Dandadan, I think I will be giving it a 5 out of 5 stars rating. So yeah, that's really all the books and manga that I managed to finish in the month of June. Please wish me luck that I can actually find, well, at least 1 or 2 5-star fantasy books in the second half of this year. And right now, I'm busy playing Elden Ring. So yeah, my reading time is kind of cut off because of that, because I have to decide whether to read or play Elden Ring DLC. And I'm almost done, I think, with Elden Ring DLC. Do let me know if you want me to post just one video compiling all the battles that I had with the main bosses of the DLC, because I'm recording all of them. I can compile them into one video and post them once on my YouTube channel if you're interested in that. But yeah, let me know. But because of DLC, the time to read has been cut off for me. But I think once I'm done with the Elden Ring DLC, well, I will be back to reading in full force. So yeah, Again, as I said, that's all the books that I managed to finish last month. Do let me know what you think about the books that I finished. And of course, do tell me how many books you finished last month. Which one was your favorite book of the month? As always, thank you so much for watching and thank you for your support. Bye-bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.